magic, that this was very intentional and strategic work that I was going to have to do in order to change my life. And so if you followed my work for any length of time, you know we do a Finish the Year Strong campaign. We do a Start the Year Off Right campaign, because I believe that how you enter a cycle will determine how you end that cycle. And more than your excitement, more than your affirmations and your resolutions, it comes down to doing the actual work that is going to make the difference in this cycle and season of your life. And so I want to, for just a few episodes, begin to deal with something that I believe is very important. It's still the beginning of the year. If you've fallen off with your goals, I don't want you to feel bad. Don't want you to get depressed or despondent. But what I do want you to do, I want you to take responsibility. One of the reasons that the message and the work that I do has resonated globally is because it is a message of empowerment. And what I know from decades of personal work is that the empowerment message is the only message that requires an individual to take responsibility for their lives. When I came onto the scene years ago, I heard all of these very positive, motivational, inspirational people, and I really struggled to find my bearing and place in the industry because my message was very different from what I was hearing. Everybody was just hearing positive thoughts, positive words, positive vibes, and you know, I was like, well, that's not what I did, and that's not what worked for me. So you begin to kind of wonder, is your voice relevant in this space? But what happened is I really began to carve out my own personal niche and brand. And what I have been teaching all of my life, and especially in the recent years, is a message of self-empowerment. Everybody's talking about self-help and self-improvement, but the reality is that if you could help yourself and you could improve yourself that easily, you would be further along in your life. And so what we have is people with a lot of positive affirmations and a lot of positive thinking exercises, but no breakthroughs in their lives. And I came onto the scene and people began to see breakthroughs and shifts and pivots happening in their lives. And people began to pay attention because this is not just an inspirational and motivational message. And so you can't group me in as just a motivational speaker or an inspirational person. I am a person that is all about self-empowerment. And let me tell you why self-empowerment is so important. The reality is that we live in a real world, and you've heard me say this before. As long as you're in the world, you're going to have the potentiality to be pulled away from your purpose, to be divided from your assignment. You're going to have the opportunity to be swayed from your mission in life. And the only way that you're going to overcome it is to realize that there's the seed of greatness within you that has already overcome every challenge, odd, and opposition that arises in your life. But this is not the kind of stuff that motivation and inspirational people are going to tell you, because they're going to tell you how wonderful your life is going to be, how great your life is going to be. You're never going to have these challenges or problems and blah, blah, blah. And all of that sounds good in theory, but what people don't understand and realize is that you live in a real world and you face real challenges. And so whether you live in the first world or the second world or the third world, the reason this message of empowerment has reached so many people around the globe, and I hear so much feedback from other nations, is because this is a message that requires you to take responsibility for your life. And when I began to take responsibility for my life, it changed the realm that I live from, and it changed what I was able to reach for in my life. I realized that this is not magic, this is not some formula, but I must be willing to do the work if I want to see transformation happen. And so as we begin to delve into a topic that I believe is very important, I just want to remind you that you are responsible for your life. We cannot blame our lives on situations or circumstances. We cannot blame our lives on the social parameters and conditionings and environments. we have to take responsibility for our lives. And so I believe that to the level that you take responsibility for your life is the level that you are going to rule in life. You know, the reality is that 2022 will look just like 2021 unless you do something different. You've heard me say this before. If you do the same, you get the same. If you do different, you get different. And so what different thing are you going to do to shift the direction of your life this year? I want you to write that down. What different thing are you going to do this year to shift the direction of your life? If you are frustrated with patterns, cycles, inconsistency, lack of growth, lack of momentum in your life, you got to do something different. You got to do more than positive affirmations. You got to do more than positive thinking. You're going to have to get down to the root of what it is that needs to change in your life. This is what I know. You cannot reverse a cycle in your life without getting to the root of what is wrong with your life. You cannot reverse a cycle in your life until you get to the root of what's not working in your life. What we try to do, we try to pack positivity on top of a bunch of junk that's not working in our lives, and then we get frustrated because we're not seeing the outcomes that we want. This year is not going to just be different. If it's going to be different, it's going to be because you did something different. And so what I want you to do, I want you to get out of that framework so much of just positive thoughts and positive vibes. And I want you to realize that you are the catalyst, you are the architect, you are the engineer that is going to propel the transformation and the breakthroughs that you want to see in your life this year. And so as I was really pondering this and really thinking, because I've been writing a lot, and I hope you're reading the articles and the literature about change in a new year and the different things that need to happen for change to take place. You know, this is going to be a very monumental year for me because there's some big things that I'm working on and some things that are much larger than me and much larger than I can wrap my mind around totally, but they have to be done in order to move into new levels of greatness and success. And so even as I'm doing the work individually, I thought it was important to have this conversation with you and to let you know that things don't just happen and things don't just change. We have to initiate that change in our lives. And so as I began to think about that, I came up with what I'm calling commitments, charting the course to changing your life. You know, I believe that every major life turn, every major life shift is the product of a commitment. You know, many people will admire greatness. They will admire success and excellence in another person, but they will never take the time to develop and to pursue that for their own lives. And I think it's a travesty to go through life living mediocre, living below your potential, living below what is possible for you because you were not willing to commit to anything different in your life. And so we're going to really delve into this, and I don't know how many episodes I'm going to take yet to devote to this, but I feel like this framework is very important for you to see transformation take place in your life. You know, a lot of times people are just stuck, and every year is a repeat of the year before, and nothing is changing. They're living in these cycles, and if you don't break these cycles, it moves from that to a place of regret and hopelessness and despair, and many people just give up and say, what's the use? It's not working anyway. And so I want you to understand that commitment is a critical component to transformation taking place in your life this year. Now, today is January 22nd. I don't know when or where you may be listening to this. It may be a different time when you hear the podcast, but the reality is this. This month is pretty much over. We're going into the last week of January 2022, which means that leaves us with 11 more months left in this year. So time is moving really quickly. As I told you in the opening and the intro, by now most people have given up on their goals, become empty again, people have begun to give up on the different goals and visions and things that they set for themselves because they have had that aha moment where they have woken up to the reality that this is not just going to happen and that this is a lot harder than I